He thought he could humiliate a pregnant woman in public, but he had no idea who she married. You won't believe what went down in that rain-soaked Georgia parking lot. And I promise you, it's about to make your blood boil and your jaw drop at the same time, so stick around because you're going to want to see every single detail of this. Penny, 7 months pregnant, was just trying to grab a few groceries when her ex, Derek, who still thought he ran the world, rolled up in his shiny black SUV with his new girlfriend, a wannabe trophy chick with that smug, superior look on her face, the kind that makes your skin crawl, and without a single warning, Derek stepped out and splashed mud all over her, mud running down her designer maternity coat, splattering her swollen belly, as his mistress laughed like she had just won some twisted prize in a cruel game. Now, you've got to picture this. Penny didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't even flinch like a weak person would, because she knew exactly who she was dealing with. And more importantly, she had a plan brewing that would make him regret ever thinking he could humiliate her in public. She just looked him dead in the eye, her jaw tight, the rain soaking her hair, and calmly pulled out her phone and dialed one number that would set everything in motion and shatter Derek's little world of thinking he was untouchable. And before we dive deeper into what happens next, I want you to hit that like button and comment below if you've ever had someone try to humiliate you in public, because you're going to feel every ounce of Penny's power and calm revenge. And I promise it's worth sharing your story too. See, Derek thought he was clever, thought he could scare her, thought no one would believe a pregnant woman over him and his lies. But Penny knew all his dirty little secrets, the ones he buried under his fake charm and his inflated sense of superiority. And she also knew one thing that he had absolutely no clue about. The person she married next wasn't just anyone. He was someone whose reach, influence, and patience made Derek's little games look like child's play. And while Derek was busy mocking her, throwing mud like he owned the place, Penny was already calling her husband, explaining the scene calmly, not a hint of panic in her voice, because she knew he would handle it. And when she hung up, the fear in Derek's eyes could have been measured like a lightning strike, sudden, shocking, undeniable. People passing by stopped, unsure if they were witnessing a domestic dispute, a crime, or some twisted reality show, because the scene was surreal. A heavily pregnant woman standing perfectly still while two people cackled at her expense, rain pouring down, and in the distance, the sound of a powerful car engine approaching, like the arrival of karma itself. And as Derek tried to compose himself, to salvage his macho image, Penny's husband, who Derek thought she was divorced from and weak, pulled up, stepping out of a sleek black vehicle, looking calm but deadly, the kind of calm that makes you realize someone is about to unleash a storm. And here's the kicker. Derek had no idea who she married. He didn't know the guy had connections, intelligence, and a no-nonsense attitude that made corrupt cops sweat and high-profile people respect him. The kind of man who could turn a simple parking lot confrontation into a public exposure that would humiliate Derek far beyond his imagination. And in that moment, Penny didn't even have to speak. Her presence alone said it all, and Derek could feel it. The shift, the imbalance, the impending fallout he had no control over. And if you think this sounds like a movie, trust me, it's real life, and it's about to get even messier, because Penny's husband wasn't just going to protect her. He was going to make sure Derek understood the cost of his arrogance, the consequences of underestimating a woman, and the power of marrying someone who actually values justice and has the tools to deliver it. And while all this is happening, Penny stands there, chest out, holding her belly, looking at Derek with that calm intensity that screams, "You messed with the wrong woman at the wrong time." People are recording videos, snapping pictures, and yes, you might want to share this one because it's a classic case of public humiliation turned upside down, where the person who thought they were untouchable is about to face a storm he can't control, and it all started with one calm phone call in the middle of a Georgia downpour. So, take a second right now, hit subscribe if you love seeing justice served in real life, and get ready because Penny's story is not just about humiliation. It's about empowerment, strategy, and watching someone who thought they had all the power get completely dismantled in the most satisfying way possible. As Derek stood there, still dripping mud from head to toe, trying to grasp why the tables suddenly flipped, Penny's husband didn't even raise his voice. He just walked up slowly, each step deliberate, and Derek could feel the weight of someone who didn't tolerate nonsense, someone who commanded respect without needing to shout. And that's when panic started creeping into Derek's eyes. The same way a scared kid freezes when the principal finally notices their prank. The rain was relentless, washing off the evidence Derek thought he had left behind, but the humiliation he was about to face wasn't something a few puddles could erase. Penny's husband pulled out his phone and, with a calm, almost clinical tone, started recording, documenting every single second of Derek's arrogance, every snicker from the mistress, every malicious grin he tried to maintain, as if nothing could touch him. And the irony? Derek's little stunt, which he thought would make him look dominant, now looked petty, pathetic, and downright cruel in the eyes of everyone around. Drivers slowed down to stare. Passers-by couldn't help but stop and watch. And Penny, still standing tall in the rain, belly swollen, coat ruined, hair plastered to her face, looked like an unshakable force, like the eye of a storm that no mud splash, no insult, no humiliation could break. And here's the thing about Penny. She didn't need to yell. She didn't need to cry. She didn't need to beg for attention or justice, because she had something stronger than noise. She had strategy. Her husband, the man Derek had no idea she was married to, calmly started narrating what had happened, giving context to anyone within earshot, making Derek squirm as his mistress looked on, realizing that the charm she had relied on to feel superior had just evaporated into embarrassment. And Derek, the self-proclaimed untouchable, had no idea that every insult he had thrown, every bit of mud he had splashed, every attempt at public humiliation was being logged, documented, and stored in a way that could ruin him socially, professionally, and legally, because Penny's husband wasn't just a man who stood up to bullies. He was a man who turned evidence into power, and power into satisfaction. And while Derek tried to recover, to play it off like nothing mattered, Penny finally spoke, her voice calm but sharp, almost like eyes cutting through smoke. "You thought you could embarrass me, Derek, but you forgot one thing. You never knew who I married." And the words hit Derek like a punch to the gut, leaving him frozen, as the crowd around them sensed the tension shift, felt the power move from the person who looked weak and humiliated to the person standing beside her, strong, controlled, and completely untouchable. And that's when people started recording videos, snapping photos, sharing the moment, because there was nothing more satisfying than seeing someone who prided themselves on cruelty suddenly exposed for exactly what they were: insecure, reckless, and clueless about real consequences. Penny didn't need to explain the next steps. Her husband handled it all. Phone calls were made, legal threats outlined, the mistress's smug smile faltering as she realized she had just become a witness in a very real public exposure, and Derek's attempts to save face fell flat, because he had underestimated the combination of intelligence, planning, and calm determination. And now his reputation, which he had so carefully built, was crumbling in real time, in front of everyone who had witnessed the mud incident, amplified by the viral nature of social media. And Penny? She finally allowed herself a small smile, feeling the justice flowing through the chaos, knowing that her baby, her future, and her dignity were protected not through confrontation, not through anger, but through clever action and perfect timing. People around them couldn't stop talking. Whispers spread like wildfire as Derek tried to mutter excuses, but the weight of his misjudgment crushed him, and the mistress, who thought she was untouchable by association, realized the power dynamics she had misread. Every passerby, every car pulling in and out, became an unwilling witness to Derek's unraveling, and with every second, the humiliation multiplied. And through it all, Penny's husband stayed composed, narrating facts, showing evidence, controlling the narrative, and making sure that Derek, who had aimed to control her life with intimidation and arrogance, now had no control at all. And for anyone watching this unfold, it's a lesson in patience, intelligence, and how true power doesn't scream. It observes, records, and acts at the perfect moment. So take a moment, drop a comment if you've ever seen someone get their comeuppance in real life, because Penny and her husband just delivered a masterclass in public humiliation turned justice, and you're going to want to see how it all wraps up in a way that's both shocking and emotionally satisfying, proving that no one, no matter how arrogant or cruel, is untouchable when someone knows exactly how to play the game. By the time Derek realized what was happening, it was already too late. His smug confidence had crumbled, replaced by fear, confusion, and a bitter taste of his own medicine, because Penny's husband had orchestrated everything with the precision of a chess master, turning what was meant to be a humiliating moment for her into a public spectacle, exposing Derek's arrogance, cruelty, and complete lack of foresight. And the crowd, which had gathered slowly but surely around the wet parking lot, now watched in stunned silence as Derek tried to explain, to justify, to reclaim some shred of dignity. But every word fell flat. Every excuse sounded weak, and every look he threw at Penny was met with calm, unshakable confidence, the kind that said clearly, "You messed with the wrong person, and your time of reckoning has arrived." And it wasn't just about Derek's humiliation. It was the lesson, the shock, and the satisfying twist that Penny had married someone who wasn't just strong and capable, but someone who could make sure justice was served without even raising his voice. And she stood there, 7 months pregnant, muddy but unbowed, radiating a strength that left everyone around stunned, witnessing firsthand the power of composure, intelligence, and timing over brute arrogance. And Derek's mistress, who had laughed at him moments before, now looked terrified, realizing that her association with him had backfired spectacularly, and that she too was caught in the public fallout, a harsh reminder that anyone who thinks cruelty and arrogance can go unchecked will eventually face consequences that are both public and deeply personal. Penny's husband calmly recorded Derek's attempts at salvaging his ego, then uploaded the evidence to the right channels, making sure that Derek's actions were documented in a way that couldn't be ignored or erased. And as the video spread online, social media exploded, people reacting with disbelief, anger, and satisfaction, because here was a man who thought he could humiliate a pregnant woman in public, now exposed for his toxic behavior, all while the woman he tried to degrade stood tall, protected and vindicated. And through it all, Penny stayed silent, letting the situation unfold, letting Derek face the consequences of underestimating her, and letting her husband execute the perfect plan of justice, knowing that revenge doesn't have to be loud or violent to be devastatingly effective. Sometimes it's about patience, strategy, and knowing exactly how to turn someone's arrogance against them, which is exactly what happened here. The rain finally started to ease, dripping off the edges of cars and onto the asphalt, but the scene remained charged with tension, satisfaction, and a sense of poetic justice that made everyone around realize how powerfully one well-executed plan can rewrite a moment that was meant to humiliate into a moment that empowered, educated, and shocked everyone watching. Derek, now humiliated, wet, and defeated, finally had no choice but to retreat, his status shattered, his pride in ruins, while Penny, holding her baby bump, walked away with a sense of calm and victory, knowing that she had turned an act of public cruelty into a moment that not only protected her dignity, but publicly taught a lesson about arrogance, prejudice, and underestimating the strength of someone you thought was weak. And if you think that's where it ended, it's not. The ripple effects of Derek's humiliation reached friends, coworkers, and family, making him question every decision, every insult, every attempt at control, while Penny's story became a symbol of resilience, empowerment, and the perfect example of justice served with intelligence, patience, and timing. And for everyone watching this story unfold, it's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful victories aren't loud or chaotic. They're strategic, calculated, and leave a lasting impression far beyond the moment itself. So here's my question for you. Have you ever seen someone get their full comeuppance in real life? Drop your story in the comments. Smash that like button if you believe in justice being served. And don't forget to subscribe, because stories like Penny's prove that strength, intelligence, and patience always win in the end, leaving every bully, cheat, or arrogant person with the unforgettable realization that underestimating someone can be the biggest mistake of their life. And in the case of Derek, that lesson was learned in the most public, shocking, and emotionally satisfying way imaginable.